Success. Everyone dreams of it. Everyone strives for it. But not everyone achieves it. Success can mean different things to different people. As we pause to celebrate 25 years of AboitizLand, we ask ourselves, how do we measure success? AboitizLand was founded in 1994, with humble beginnings in a small office and a vision of creating quality, innovative properties for the Cebu market. And our very first residential development, Northtown Homes, a master-planned community now touted as Cebu's most prestigious address. Our very first industrial development, West Cebu Industrial Park in Balamban, a sprawling 268-hectare industrial estate ideal for medium to heavy industries such as shipbuilding and allied activities that helped create thousands of jobs for the residents of Balamban and transformed it from a fourth-class to a first-class municipality. Our first commercial development, the outlets at Pueblo Verde, the first outdoor outlet mall in Cebu, offering exciting new shopping and dining experiences. Emboldened by the success of these pioneering developments, AboitizLand ventured forth into bigger and more ambitious projects, spreading its footprint in Cebu and beyond. AboitizLand in 2019 has grown by leaps and bounds since our first inception. Our workforce has grown exponentially, and so has our business. Thousands of hectares of land have been transformed into innovative, deliberately planned, and purposely designed residential, commercial, and industrial communities that elevate the living experience. And with our growth come the rewards, not only in revenue, but also in things far more valuable, like the number of people whose lives we have touched and changed for the better, our vecinos. AboitizLand takes this further with various programs designed to give Filipinos a chance to create better ways to live for themselves, ensuring that our developments positively impact our neighbors and our surrounding ecosystem, advancing the communities that host us as we advance our business. No matter how we quantify 25 years of achievements, it is what we have yet to do that holds the most promise for AboitizLand. More strategic partnerships to be forged, more fully integrated townships to be built, more industrial parks that fortify businesses and create opportunities, more commercial centers that elevate lifestyles, and more residential communities where individuals and families will live, love, and grow. AboitizLand. After 25 years, one thing is clear. We've only just begun. As we cherish our glorious past and celebrate today's victories, we forge ahead into an exciting future.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to AboitizLand Webcast Season 2, Episode 5. I'm Isa Litton, your host, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in for an afternoon of learning. First off, in its mission to create better ways to live, AboitizLand is holding this, a series of webcasts that will touch on a variety of topics in the context of the new normal, from investments and architectural design to community and sustainable living. Perhaps more than ever, real estate developers and property seekers alike are reimagining what constitutes a desirable, livable community. There's a growing shift from the cramped spaces of city centers to less crowded suburban locations, partly made possible by online modes of working, learning, and even e-commerce. So even with vacation homes, which used to be regarded as secondary homes, they're now being considered as principal residences as the pandemic continues. People put more premium on features and amenities that make work-life balance more attainable. If well-conceived, such neighborhoods outside megacities can actually become safe havens for easy social distancing and the enjoyment of the outdoors. And today, we will learn about the principles behind the design of pandemic-resilient communities, such as AboitizLand's Foressa Mountain Town. Now, to give you an idea of what Foressa Mountain Town is all about, why don't we all watch this?
We all live our lives constantly searching. Maybe it's for escape from our stressful lives, for a chance to live in peace, or maybe just searching for adventure. If life truly is about the journey to find what we're looking for, oftentimes we just need to get lost. Get lost, and maybe you'll find peaceful existence. See the world in its entire splendor. Live life in wonder. Get lost, and you will find Foressa Mountain Town. Situated along the mountains of Kansumoroy, Balamban, just 90 minutes away from Cebu City, you'll find Foressa Mountain Town, AboitizLand's master-planned mountain community. Get lost, and you will find life. Foressa Mountain Town offers a community that values adventure, exploration, and the spirit of wonder. Here, find abundant space for your home, where living in the great outdoors is an even more fulfilling experience for the family. Get lost in the great backyard. Here in the outdoors, nature is the amenity. Almost 300 hectares of open spaces, hills, streams, breathtaking views, and a forest reserve. All are waiting for you to discover them. Take this opportunity to get lost, and maybe you'll find everything you're looking for. Take a step closer to finding yourself in Foressa Mountain Town. Another quality development of AboitizLand.
Wasn't that just a breathtaking community? So while you are here, please make sure to like our official Facebook page, Foressa Mountain Town, and also AboitizLand.inc. Tag your friends and family too who you think might benefit from this broadcast. Let's share lessons, all right? So certainly the COVID crisis is providing a valuable lesson that the greatest assets in life are those we have so often taken for granted. And what are those? Fresh air, large, open, and green spaces, mindfully put together to create a community that puts premium on the residents' well-being. And that's something I think all of us really, really need. So today, we are joined by an esteemed panel of ladies and gentlemen led by Miami-based DPZ CoDesign, or DPZ. a firm internationally recognized as a leader in the creation of resilient communities for over 4 decades, and thought leaders on the new urbanism. It's a movement that promotes sustainable planning and development. Let's meet them, shall we? First off, we have someone who is a partner with DPZ CoDESIGN. In addition to nearly 30 years of design experience, he's also lectured widely across the U.S., in the Middle East, China, Laos, Indonesia, and yes, here in the Philippines. He is writing with Andres Duani, a book on holistic green community design. He is a LEED accredited professional, a member of the Congress of the New Urbanism, and sits on the board of the National Town Builders Association. Last but not least, he's an expert resource of the United States Department of State and counts among the 20 expert committee members of the United Nations Environment Program Global Forum on Human Settlements. Ladies and gentlemen, we have LEED AP CNU NTBA partner of DPZ CoDesign, Senen Melchor Ampil Antonio. Hey, Senen.
Hi, Isa. Great to be here. Thank you for having us. And it's great to be back. Actually, we are now becoming regulars and excited to share with you our thoughts on Foressa Mountain Town.
Well, I'm excited because it's my first time. So pleasure to meet you, Senen. Looking forward to what you have to share later. Thanks. Our next speaker, or our next panelist, is a planner, urban designer, and architectural designer as well, with close to 20 years of experience that covers a broad range of project types. He's managed projects for developer, municipal, and institutional clients, which include form-based codes, regulatory reform, urban infill and redevelopment, greenfield development, campus redevelopment, and architectural design. Among his project experiences, he's focused on regulations and form-based codes, leading code projects and providing code-related education. He heads DPZ's office in Portland, Oregon, leading projects within the region and across the country. He's active in the Congress for New Urbanism, or CNU, where he serves as a member of their board of directors. Everyone, please welcome our second panelist, partner of DPZ CoDesign, Matthew J. Lambert. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Isa. Thanks. It's great to be back in the Philippines, even virtually.
Oh, yes. Well, I hope to meet you physically one day. Pleasure to meet you. And again, looking forward to what you have to share later.
Same. Thanks.
Next up, we have a civil engineer who has focused his work on the integration of intelligent urban infrastructure with new urbanism and smart growth planning. He is the founder and president of the Crabtree Group Incorporated. He's been a faculty instructor for the Form-Based Codes Institute and a leader in the Congress for New Urbanism Rainwater Initiative, as well as an author and lecturer on sustainable infrastructure, from water to transportation. He's a founding member of the Transect Codes Council and a contributing author of Sustainable and Resilient Cities. Everyone, please welcome founder and president of the Crabtree Group, Inc. We have Paul Crabtree. Hello, Paul.
Hi. Hi, Isa. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We have quite a panel, and it's lovely to see all of you reunited once again, I hear. So yes, Paul, lovely to have you. Next up, we have the principal at Moser Design Group Incorporated, a residential design and new urbanist planning firm located in Beaufort, South Carolina, with a principal mission to design and reintroduce traditional settlement patterns, architecture, and building methodologies into the context of walkable mixed-use communities. He's a frequent consultant across the United States and beyond, even for new and old towns, infill projects, hamlets, and neighborhoods. He collaborates with other professionals to plan, analyze, and reintroduce historic, local, and regional building patterns. He's also a town urbanist for his home village of Habersham, where he lives and works. We're lucky to have him. We got Eric Moser. Hey, Eric. Hey, Eric.
Good afternoon. Lisa,
Good
thanks
afternoon.
so much for the introduction. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you as well. Looking forward to your presentation later with the rest of the gentlemen. Meanwhile, Here's another group that we're going to have this afternoon. GreenStrat Incorporated, or GreenStrat Inc., is an architectural design, planning, and consultancy firm whose mission is to provide architectural and planning services that are supportive of and consistent with green build principles. So up next, let's make room for the ladies. Our next panelist is a senior design associate at GreenStrat Inc. She has intensive experience in urban design and town planning, urban redevelopment planning, including local development and code writing, formulation of design guidelines, planning of neighborhood, block, street, and defining the building character, land use planning, residential subdivision planning, mixed use and planned unit development, and master planning. Assistant to the mayor of the City of Manila on special projects. So here's our next panelist. Everyone please welcome Joy Dawis Asuncion.
Hello, everyone. Was it 3 years already that I've last seen this team?
Oh, well, it's
excited.
Again, it's a reunion of sorts, and I'm looking forward to what everyone will contribute when it comes to today's learning session. Thank you very much, Ms. Joy. The last seat in our panel today is occupied by this lady, also a senior design associate at GreenStrat. She has solid academic training and experience in various fields: architecture, green build, building technology, urban environmental and community planning, and development management. She's recognized for her accomplishments as part of the academe, an architect, and building science analyst. So everyone, please welcome Marie-Therese Santiano.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Ms. Therese. Oh, yes. Looking forward to, again, what everyone has to say. There you go. Our panelists lent their expertise today to help bring to life AboitizLand communities such as Seafront Residences in Batangas and Foressa Mountain Town in Cebu. So again, welcome to the show, Senen, Matt, Paul, Eric, Joy, and Therese. So on to the main part now, everybody. The new normal continues to reshape people's preferences for a home or a community as property seekers are more discerning of features that allow them to achieve a full, enjoyable, balanced life, even while in quarantine. Today's show will touch on the characteristics that define a resilient community. Without further ado, I turn the floor over to our panel of speakers, and I believe we'll start with Senen Antonio. Senen, come on in.
Thank you very much, Isa, for that introduction. And to our audience, we really appreciate you tuning in and learning more about Foressa Mountain Town. As Isa had mentioned, pandemic and post-pandemic considerations have truly reframed planning and development. And several top-tier cities have taken a hit, to their reputation and allure because cultural amenities like food and art are closed down and unavailable. And many cities have been the epicenters of the pandemic. So populations are now willing to live outside of central business districts in exchange for access to nature and open space. This being said, most exurban developments are sprawl-oriented. There's a lot of choice out there for people to move out of cities, but most of these places are car-dependent and fail to provide immediate and inexpensive access to services such as medical services or schools, or even to basic daily needs such as groceries. So our post-pandemic communities must be sustainable and resilient in the full sense of these words. To this aim, the DPZ team incorporates a series of integrated strategies for comprehensive sustainability, comprising what we call the 7 Cs. And these are communities which are compact, are complete, are connected, are complex, are convivial, are conserving, and are cost-effective. These 7 Cs are integrated and interrelated. So you will see a good deal of overlap in their aspects and strategies for resilient development. So let's start with compact. Compact developments or compact communities are those which are efficient and equitable in their use of land area. Sprawl is a common disease found around the world, including in Cebu. And as you can see on this slide, in 68 years, dating from 1944 to 2012, urban development has spread out in one contiguous mass in Cebu, in Metro Cebu, engulfing open space and overburdening the transportation infrastructure. In fact, in North America, 80% of everything that's been built was built in the last 50 years. And in the Philippines, it's probably less.
So what are the building blocks of a sustainable development? Well, really, for us, it's the neighborhood. Thinking in terms of what is a neighborhood, what are the components, and how does it physically work? Under smart growth, a neighborhood comprises approximately 50 hectares, which is about the area covered by a conceptual circle with a quarter-mile or 400-meter radius, roughly a 5-minute walk from center to edge. This is considered to be the average distance or time a person would walk to daily services before they would use a car and drive. This metric varies a bit based on the age, climate, and culture. For instance, in the Philippines and other Asian societies, it's been observed that this could be stretched further to 10 minutes or even 15 minutes. But as a structure, we use this neighborhood unit and extent to really structure the way that development is designed. So when we apply this to place, the area encompassed by the conceptual circle is called the pedestrian shed. It equates to the optimal size of a complete and walkable neighborhood. As such, for a community to be truly sustainable and walkable, it should be structured in neighborhood increments of this size. So it may be a large place, but it needs to be broken down into individual increments that are of their own walkable, with basic daily needs provided within each neighborhood.
Good point, Matt. And in fact, these neighborhood increments actually are still identifiable in many of Cebu's cities, specifically in their old urban cores, as can be seen in Talisay, in Naga, in Karkar. And these are typically centered on a place of community importance, such as a church or a plaza or a city hall or a school or all of the above.
Yeah, and we've really observed this in many settlements all over the world, and it's great to see that in historic places, but we've lost that in a lot of new places. So we really center on this neighborhood structure in laying out development. Here, the pedestrian sheds in this diagram of Foressa coincide with their neighborhood centers. Designing this way, community services and amenities are within a 5 to 7 minute walk of residences with each neighborhood. Incidentally, the smaller circles that are here in the light blue are a 2 to 3 minute walk because there are other things that are important, parks and playgrounds and other amenities within the neighborhood beyond this 5 minute walk. So we structure the community in a series of mixed neighborhoods, which we'll speak about here in a minute, as well as other destinations, and really think about how long does it take to walk from one to the other? What is a person's experience on the way?
And, from an environmental standpoint, the loss of natural habitat and natural areas for recreation, or even ag land, is one of the greatest issues facing the Philippines and other places as low-density car-dependent development spreads into undeveloped areas. So towns built with traditional patterns of moderate densities and the mix of land uses have a much smaller development footprint, as you can see from these pair of diagrams. So the diagram on the left shows how much of 20th century development has taken form with a sprawling development pattern. The diagram on the right compresses this development and compacts it into a much smaller footprint, providing the same amount of development, but really being able to preserve more land for these uses, such as ag and preservation of natural features. Moreover, these greater densities help reduce development infrastructure, as Paul will explain in this slide.
Compactness is inherently sustainable. And one example is with stormwater. And we put together this chart to illustrate this at density as a stormwater best management practice. Along the bottom is the density in dwelling units per acre on the horizontal axis. And the red line indicates how much runoff will happen on a per acre basis. And you see that on a per acre basis, the amount of runoff increases dramatically based on the density because you're adding more impervious surface. However, on the other side of that is the blue line, which is the runoff per capita. And as you can see that in that line, the amount of runoff per capita reduces very significantly as the density goes up.
Thanks, Paul. Does anyone else have anything to add before we wrap up this particular C?
Oh, and compact. I think I would add, Sanan, as we bring up density and we talk about, the current condition now and what the future might hold, that there is the density mentioned. Isa mentioned the megacities earlier, and there's that on the far end, and then there's the low density sprawl on the other, and we're actually talking about something that's in the middle. A lot of the middle is often ignored or left to the side. So as Paul's mentioning density here, that density could go up or down, and the megacities are over here. But the neighborhood structure is a principle that works at a variety of different levels. And so with Foressa, we're not looking at the megacity density, but we're using the structure at a lower density, as opposed to building at a lower density without structure. So I think it's important to bring that into the conversation.
Hi again. Hey, gentlemen. Okay, so we're talking about compact, and I'm learning a lot. So far, you're saying it's about the use, let's say, efficient and equitable use of the land area. But here's one thing, though. When you hear the word compact, people think it's small. What do you have to say to that? Like size-wise?
Well, there's some things that are small, and we'll talk a little bit later about how we hope that it's the roads. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the house or the property or the open space. In fact, there's an opportunity to provide for all sizes. Some people have a need for a smaller home, and other people for a larger home, and you can provide for both. And provide both with walkable access to parks and other amenities. So it's really about figuring out how those puzzle pieces fit together.
And it's a fair point, Isa. And I think the key here to understanding what compactness means is to frame it from the mindset that everything that we're seeing now in terms of development is supersized. We're given house and lots that are much larger than we need. So it's more of right sizing. Right
efficiency. Yeah, efficient. That's why those are great keywords. Being efficient, meaning what you need, and equitable, right?
Correct.
So you don't need to be greedy with space.
Yes.
There you go. Okay, I love it. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. So that's compact. Take it away for the next C.
All right. The next C is communities that are complete. And these communities have a balance of uses, like residential and commercial uses, of course, with supportive community services, activities, and amenities. So Foressa, when we were designing it, we really honed in on this new community, this new town, being the embodiment of the integration of three aspects of Hilltown development, namely nature, placemaking, and adventure. Nature is the core of the project. It is, of course, the foundation of the design. The land tells us what to do, essentially, how to lay out the community. And then placemaking are the strategies that organizes the development at this higher level, distilling the raw elements of nature into a true town. And adventure, which the ladies from Greenstrat helped us out tremendously with, is the spirit, the extra spark that accentuates nature and placemaking and provides a lens to these prior two aspects for a truly unique community. So Foressa sits at the intersection of these three aspects. And it offers, as a community, home locations that incorporate all three of these qualities within close proximity.
And on placemaking, we look at what is complete in a community. Within those circles that we were talking about, what sort of fits in there? So thoughtful community design creates a critical mass that you need to support neighborhood businesses and community amenities, bringing a real meaning to walkability. To walk, you need useful destinations. And to support useful destinations, you need homes that are proximate to those destinations. Next. Oh, that was on the prior one, Sinan.
Let's take it up again from there. Okay.
Okay, we'll start from this one. Okay. Complete communities combine the many elements of daily life in a relatively close proximity. Walkable proximity, as we discussed, 5 to 7 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, but not 30 minutes away, not so far that you would be uncomfortable and willing to walk from one to the other. By building with the chassis of blocks and streets and connecting community spaces and centers, it's possible to mix and match different uses and activities in walkable, neighborhood-centric design. And Foressa is designed using these principles. It's built as a series of walkable neighborhoods, larger town centers, all with a mix of uses, open spaces, and housing, within walkable proximity and embedded in a compelling landscape.
And traditional neighborhood design, or what we call TNDs, engender mixing and mingling of uses in a complete range of housing types than single land use zoning allows. For example, here's a vignette of Foressa's main town center, which is designed and regulated to have a more urban character. You can see more or less how that's defined by the dark purple in the middle of the image. And as one moves away from this town center, from the urban core, the development character becomes less urban until it becomes fairly rural, where Foressa meets nature at its edges. So TND offers real variety in lifestyles within one community. In suburban sprawl, for example, you are offered limited, if not false choice. Sir, would you like carpet flooring or would you like bamboo flooring? But ultimately, all suburban residents lead very similar homogeneous lives. Compare that with a TND such as Foressa, where a young person might start out renting a flat in a shop house in the urban town center that you see here, where other young people hang out. It's active, it's highly walkable, it's affordable. And in fact, as I mentioned in a prior AboitizLand webcast, Andres Duani has said that for society to flourish, it's young people's mission to find other DNA. So this, the town center, the urban core is a great opportunity for that. That person might then marry, and then the young couple might move into a mid-sized home with a bit more space for a slowly growing family, maybe on a more quiet street, out of, but relatively still close to the town center. And then as the family grows and say the children are fairly active, they might locate to one of the largest houses in Foressa with direct access to one of the nature preserves. And eventually, as the kids move out, as the whole cycle of life, ebb and flow of life, the couple might move back to the town center, this time in a nicer apartment. They don't need as much space. We talked about right sizing earlier. And upon reaching an age where it's difficult, if not actually dangerous to drive, they can still walk for their basic daily needs and maintain their social networks. This is an aspect of resiliency that needs to be incorporated into more of our communities, especially the Philippines. Resilient humans are those that age gracefully, and more importantly, those that are able to age gracefully in place, that is within the same community. And here are some housing typologies that we designed for Foressa that Eric can talk about.
As Sinan and Matt have explained, the master plan offers a full range of opportunities from the most natural to the most urban and everything in between. Within each neighborhood, the residents will find a wide variety of building types. And each building type also has a full range of choices, allowing virtually any demographic to find a really appropriate dwelling to meet their needs within the context of Foressa that they choose, which is it's pretty exciting and very rare for many projects, particularly sprawled. One of the most, I think, significant aspects, which Sinan has mentioned already, is this opportunity of a full life cycle within one community.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And we've at the presentation we really drove home to the AboitizLand team that Foressa will be a community that will offer 5-star provisions, but also 5 billion star provisions with the incorporation of nature and opportunities to appreciate the natural surroundings. So back to you, Isa.
Again, I think that's why you did cover this very, very well. And it actually, I think you covered this segment very, very well. And again, with the word complete, you really showed that it's complete. And not just for the sake of having everything you need right there, even again, like from a growing family, from kids growing up all the way to adulthood, it's really the value. It's really also the kind of living or lifestyle you want to offer. So yeah, I think that was pretty complete. Congrats, gentlemen.
Thanks, Isa.
Shall we move on to the next C?
Absolutely. So the next C is we envision Foressa to be a community that is connected. So that means it is walkable, it is bikeable, it is transit ready if insofar as possible. It has a permeable transit network, and it is proximate. You know, the needs and destinations are within easy access from anywhere within the community.
But what is it that you're connecting? And that's the question. So we were talking about what makes a place complete, and now we must connect those together. So too often we find that, as this says, the answer is cars first, and do we worry about people? Sometimes, sometimes never. And conventional thoroughfare networks, conventional networks of streets, are organized into 3 different categories: these local roads, collectors, and arterials, and they're all aimed at concentrating traffic from smaller roads to bigger roads and larger ones even. Unfortunately, this pattern results in bigger and bigger roads, all jammed with more and more traffic. Now in T&Ds, we do things differently. Streets are designed for humans first, before cars. Well, humans outside of their cars anyhow, in a connected, porous and diverse network of streets, paths, and greenways. With a dense network of interconnected streets and paths, walking becomes a viable mode of movement. You know, when it's just built for the car or the human in the car, it's a long way to go to get to a place. And on the left-hand side, you might be in a house that's right behind the shop, but you certainly can't walk there. So instead, we put this dense network together, and you allow people choice. So interestingly enough, when you make a connected network of small blocks, this type of network is better for cars and bikes as well as people. And so rather than deciding how someone should reach a destination, as the conventional one does, from smaller street to bigger and bigger street to your destination, you're given a choice. Which way would you like to go today? Which way would you like to go this afternoon? Maybe you'll take a different path than you did just this morning.
Yeah, in residential sprawl, which is unfortunately increasingly rampant in the Philippines. You know, the street frontages are given to the car, and the garages take up the fronts of houses to make it easy for the car. You know, it's all about the convenience of the car. So look at this picture. You know, where is the front doors of these houses? I don't see any. Do you? So what this kind of urban environment, what this neighborhood or Urset's neighborhood tells us is, you know, not that people live here, but cars live here.
Yeah, but you don't have to design streets that way. Non-vehicular circulation and activity are engendered by designing smaller blocks for shorter walking and biking distances, and that provides, as I said, more choice and allows streets to become more narrow and compelling. Something that is important in terms of making a place walkable is to make it pleasant. And narrow streets and streets that may be just for pedestrians or bikes are a very pleasant place. Because we've all been on fast, highly trafficked streets, and you know it's really not a great thing for a pedestrian. But if you design your network right, then you don't need streets like that, or you need very few. And well-connected, shaded, and pedestrian-friendly streets and paths are the ideal amenity to take much-needed bike rides and walks around the neighborhood. I mean, what a better thing to do? These days, I do it all the time. Walks around my neighborhood for exercise. Here's an example of a street for Foressa designed as an outdoor room for pleasant walks, for neighbors to see each other. This accommodates cars, but the design is not derived from cars first. So in Foressa, we use a series of different types of streets, not just the 3 characteristics. In this case, we've mapped 7 different types. There's also pedestrian ways and other streets in addition, designed not only to manage cars, but to lay lightly on the land and provide space and shade for pedestrians. The network of streets here is clearly more intensive to the top of the drawing, which is the town center. And as you move around from the town center, it's really much less intense. So the greatest activity, of course, ends up with the most connections and the greatest permeability. But the network then provides a series of beautiful parkways. These are in magenta, which traverse more gentle topography and combine great treed medians, and then they connect to smaller neighborhood-centric streets in blue, which are designed for those homes and nearby amenities, and especially the light ones to lay as lightly on the land as possible.
Well, let's hear from Joy and Therese as well to describe the adventure and trekking elements as they relate to connectivity.
Actually, while we wait for the rest of the ladies to come in, I have a comment again because of the words. A quick question: when you say narrow, again, still in the time of pandemic, of course that still allows for social distancing, for physical distancing, right? Let's not misconstrue the word narrow.
Oh, good point. Yeah, we mean narrow in terms of the vehicles. So
Yes.
too often, more space than is necessary is given for cars, and that just causes drivers to go faster. So we want to narrow down that space, and we want to narrow that space, but provide the space in return for the pedestrian, for trees. Yeah.
So again, even if you have a car, by the way, what we're saying is this neighborhood is not for cars. No. We're not saying that at all. It's just that we are giving options. Like today, I want to use my bike. I actually want to take a walk. I prefer, like here in the city, in Metro Manila, there's no way to get over there. It's literally right across the street. You have to go around a U-turn, you don't have that problem here in Foressa. Am I right?
You hit the nail on the head, Isa.
There you go.
In the suburbs, you have no choice.
Yeah.
You're compelled to use a car. And it's really disenfranchising a large portion of our population. The very young who cannot drive, you're not allowed to drive. The very old for whom it is difficult, if not dangerous, to drive, as I mentioned earlier. And then, and what's in between are, mostly the poor parents who have to drive their children everywhere, apart, of course, from their own commute to work, to and from work. So what we're just offering here is a wider variety of ways to get around. Yes.
I like how Matt said it. It's options. You can take the car today, but tomorrow you can take a bike. And in fact, if you're busy around a certain area, you can just walk. So you won't have to even think of bringing something along. So yes, again, choices. And what's wrong with walking and biking? That's another thing. It's an encouraging lifestyle to just put your health top of mind as well. Don't just say, I'll do this tomorrow. Really just do it.
And
there's an opportunity to walk it,
You'll definitely get really walking and biking the slopes of Foressa.
Yeah, actually, that's why let's bring in the ladies. Speaking of adventure stuff, so yeah, Miss Joy, Miss Therese.
Hello.
Hey, can you hear me now? Yes.
Loud and clear.
All right. Yes. So for the Foressa, we're actually we were very excited when we were doing this because what we wanted to do with Aboitis is to highlight the not just the site because it's beautiful, being a mountain, but also the views from Foressa. You can see the port from a certain part, and you have the thick vegetation at the back, and there's even a cave. So what we did is a network of bike and hike trail that will connect everything. It's more like a story that as you go from the start, it will be an easy trail, easy bike, and then progresses to something more challenging, more difficult, and go even more extreme at some parts. So it's like having the road network that you have choices for the hike and bike trails. We also had these choices if you're a beginner biker or a professional. So everyone can have access to different trails depending on their skill level and what they want or how much progress they want to do it.
Yes, and we're talking about connectivity
yes.
here. Yes. What's interesting is among the projects we already did in the Philippines, Foressa Mountain has integrated the trail system inside their development. And that's connects one hub to the other or one development to the other. And we made it in such a way that when we were doing the charrette or the initial planning, I remember Engineer Paul will provide us insight on where we can put our trails. And it was an exciting experience for Greenstrat as well, looking at the final product and seeing that every part of the Foressa Mountain development is integrated and connected via the trails that we designed. Yeah.
Good point, Joy. Thank you for bringing that up. In the sense, it's connected also in terms of the process, Isa. The way we came up with the master plan, it was these three aspects and all the team members really collaborating in true connected fashion.
And who doesn't want access to a hiking trail from your house? It's wonderful. You can get on the trail just a few blocks away.
Literally now you can just say it's practically my backyard.
Yes, and the trails that we built for Foressa are based on U.S. standards. So we made sure that everyone, if you're in a wheelchair, but it's safe, it's accessible, and it's doable. Even for the crossing the river, we have ropes and everything that it's a safe place.
Nicely done. Again, no more excuses to try to keep healthy or active because it's right there. Now, from connected, I believe we're going to go to another C, which is complex. But complex in a good way.
Yes. Well,
go ahead, gentlemen.
Yeah, complexity is a good thing. It touches upon diversity within the community. And with Foressa, it was a real challenge to sort of like organize this very, very large site with very different features. You're in one corner of the site and the landscape is so different from when you say go down into the valley, and it's a completely different environment, quite literally. So we came up with this idea where we organized the master plan via this thematic overlay. That really helps bring together urban design, architecture, the adventure components, and the landscape components within these 5 thematic districts that are, in fact, based on the major natural elements found on the site. So these aspects, each theme is drawn from the characteristics of the surrounding environment and then manifested in the design of the architectural details, the landscaping, the civic spaces, together with even the possible programming of events and activities. So the 5 elements as we defined for Foressa are light, water, earth, wood, and air. So starting with the district of light, it spans the area from the first town center. In fact, it's under construction right now. At the main entrance down to the what we call the lodge on the oxbow of the river. And the symbolism of light, particularly the sunrise, is especially meaningful given this is the first district. This is the inaugural district, and it's located on the eastern edge of the site. So it catches the first light of day, kind of poetic in that way. And of course, the aspects of light, including sunshine, moonlight, starlight, the glow of flame of a bonfire or campfire, also suggests color and vibrancy. So this conveys activity, mixed uses, the overall relative intensity of the town center. That's in this first phase. and the aspect of light would be celebrated with parks and plazas that capture the interplay of sun and shade. We might have lanterns along the streets permanently, or maybe as part of community events at the very least. As I mentioned, fire pits in the parks, places for campfires or bonfires for neighborhood cookouts, and civic buildings, particularly the proposed iconic water tower, which glows. You know, we suggested to AboitizLand that it be designed so it actually glows as a beacon of the town center, along with colorful landscaping and lamps at the entrances of homes. And of course, you know, campsites for stargazing.
Yeah, and that brings you to water, the next district. It comprises the largest town center and the neighborhoods that surround it. In this area, the presence of water is most pronounced and is experienced in districts lake, the river, and creeks. So it's down here, the town center, close to the water, with all these neighborhoods coming in adjacent and experiencing that connection with water. These prominent features are celebrated by the design of the edge of the water and water-related uses throughout the neighborhood, features and activities. Edges include parks and plazas filled with waterfalls, meditative reflecting pools, small fountains at the entrances to homes, spray parks, splash pads, and water labs where kids can cool off while splashing and spraying. Community boat parades and water events and landscaping that emphasizes this color through blue and aqua.
And then the largest district in the center of the site, appropriately, is called Earth, you know, the District of Earth. So this is the area that spans the Malingin Creek, the adjacent district center, and a proposed adventure center. And Joy and Therese will talk about that in a bit. But you know, the element of earth is evident in the rocky and mountainous terrain of this portion of the site, hence its naming. The adventure center will serve as the gateway into the district, offering terrain-oriented activities such as hiking and biking, as Joy and Therese mentioned earlier. And then the strong connection to the earth also would be found in the grounded nature of the architecture. For example, the use of stone in walls and walkways, rock gardens, and parks with rock outcroppings, playgrounds based on hill forms and caves, and trails of varying rigor for personal exercise and maybe even community competitions. And
then from there on to Wood, which is the westernmost portion of the site, you know, furthest from the river valley. It includes a neighborhood center with the proposed spa. And the wood element is evident in the thick jungle vegetation on the site, particularly in this more remote area. The district will be more rustic and with timber in its architecture and playgrounds that simulate climbing in branches, community spaces under illuminated canopies of trees, lush parks and gardens, and restoration of the landscape surrounding the neighborhood for recreation in a forested setting. So it's really taking that sort of wooden edge into the architecture and the spaces around it.
And last but not least, you know, the District of Air comprises the southernmost portion of the site. And, you know, this element is really evident in the notable altitude of this district. You know, these are the highest elevations on the entire site. So the element of air would be celebrated by parks and fields that are open to the sky, you know, that encourage open play, landscaping in hues of blue and white, pavilions and shade structures made from cloth to capture the wind, architecture with maybe a transparent quality to filter the mountain breezes, and which might also have a more pronounced vertical quality. And plazas with designs inspired by the sky, and festivals, even festivals themed around the idea of flight, such as those involving kites and lanterns. Joy, Therese?
Okay, there. Any last words
Yes.
from our two ladies before I say something also? Go ahead.
Yeah, what's
Sorry.
interesting? Yeah, go ahead. Therese, go ahead.
So for this one is because it is with a close collaboration with DPZ and Aboitis and other planners. The design of the playground or the activity center match with the concept of the air, water, and that's like what Sinan said. And most of the playgrounds that we are proposing, designed are nature-based. They're not just plastic, the typical that you can buy off the rack. So these are designed to encourage children of all ages with different skills to play, to be outdoor. Um, and it's so with this is still uh, the different parks, the theme are located in different pockets of this district, and the design of the park correspond to the air, water, woods theme of Foressa.
So that's why complex is actually a good word in this context, right? You hear words like sports complex, community complex, or plaza complex. Now, literally everything is here, and that's what makes it a complex. And I love really how you went to the elements to describe it, to inspire it. I mean, based on everything that was described and pointed out, how not everything is just jam-packed in one place, but it's distributed all throughout the property.
Right,
So-
right. And yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to say how lovely to experience an open space in water with the splash pad and water-based activities, and then to go to experience the woods and this this sort of edge of another sort, and then onto air. You know, you have spaces that are of a different character and type, which we'll talk about, but they're also programmed in a way that it's compelling. You don't just have the park in your neighborhood down the street. You know, you have other ones to choose from. Like the street network where you have choice, you have options. Yeah.
I love
Correct.
that. It's not just one way to live. It's not just one way to have fun. So
Right.
Again, we make the word complex sound and look good in this context. In fact,
Isa.
you would have, yeah? Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, there's just one unifying theme we were working on when we were thinking of what activities to introduce. That phrase or that statement is "Let nature be your playground." So anywhere in the development, it's just your playground, whether it would include air activities, wood activities, or water activities, or earth activities.
Yes.
It's still your playground.
Nicely done. Nicely done. You would have thought that this would be under complete, but no, complex and complete are two different ways of just showing what this, again, project, what Foressa has to offer. Now we're going to go, I believe, to a next C, and this one is new to me. Convivial.
Convivial. Yes, it's a big word, but it really deals with how we provide and design public spaces that are safe, that are engaging, that are accessible, and that are comfortable. So it kind of dovetails with what we just had discussed earlier. And allow me to contrast that with how URSAT's open space is typically provided in a conventional development. You know, in sprawl, open space is what is called slopes, SLOAPS, which stands for, and it's not the slopes of the hill, mind you, it's space left over after planning. And, you know, it's what, say, you know, is left over when an architect or a planner or even an engineer, you know, takes a parcel of land, puts down the buildings, maybe puts down the parking lots, puts down the roads and streets, and everything else that remains on the sheet of paper is colored green, and that becomes the open space. But as you can see, in a place like this, which is pretty common even in the Philippines, you can find these kinds of places all over. Otherwise what is called open space in this kind of development is really kind of meaningless. It's dribbly and non-usable. It doesn't actually entice a person to be in that open space, just because it just feels hostile, and it feels like it's orphan space, quite literally leftover land.
Now, designing open spaces in a meaningful way, gives us a little bit more complexity, as we discussed, but really it's about thinking of the use of the space and having options and fitting the use of the space in with the form of development around it. So here we advocate for the mindful assemblage of open space in the form of nature preserves, parks, greens, squares, plazas, and gardens at a variety of sizes and different types that are designed in coordination with their built surroundings and ideal for physical and mental well-being. Some of these are large open spaces for community gathering, of course, easy for social distancing in this manner, as we've seen, also for stormwater management in times. And there's a number of these spaces that are used throughout Foressa. We also have some medium-sized open spaces. This is where neighborhoods can come together, where you might go for a party in good times, but also for open space near your home. And also intimate spaces. You know, bigger isn't always better with open space. It's good to have large and small. And here you have intimate spaces, which are good for neighbors, you know, to hang out in the outdoors with your bubble. Just things that are really easy to get to and located nearby. But overall, this results in a great variety of spaces and meaningful spaces when you include different types. Now in Foressa, there's a lot of open space in total. I think about 358,000 square meters. It's a lot of open space, but it's not all of one type. It's of different types. There's large open spaces, there's natural spaces, but there's also intimate tight spaces. And all of these also designed for trees, you know, to cleanse the air, to provide shade, also for people's mental well-being. You know, seeing trees on a regular basis, interacting with trees is quite important. I think there's an estimate for nearly 13,000 trees, perhaps, throughout the overall site, both on open spaces in properties and along the streetscape, where it's important to have trees to shade the streets, and so you're interacting with them on a regular basis.
That's great. Those images are so perfect because they really illustrate how quiet architecture is there to kind of define the public spaces. The beautiful thing I think about a Foressa and the way that it's planned is that the principal mission of the buildings is to define those spaces, and that takes a lot of burden off the architecture. You know, I think the part of the regulations of Foressa, the architectural regulations, will actually encourage simple but very beautiful buildings. One of the unique things that you can see in every one of these sites, these slides, are the gifts to the street that we encourage buildings to offer, whether it be a porch or a potted plant or even a bubbling fountain. You know, these subtle little pieces that make the pedestrian experience so much more interesting without having buildings with lots of different angles and edges and being noisy. It's kind of the background of the civic space that in every environment. So you have these slides showed every one of the kind of the transect environment or the range from the most urban to kind of the most natural. They all have that characteristic, that simple architectural characteristic that defined the public spaces.
You know, I really loved when you drew this, Eric, that entry pavilion. You know, here's a house where the topography is sloping up away from the sidewalk, and you have a wall at a comfortable height that can be very beautifully designed. But the entry to the home, you see the car's entry to the right into the garage, but also the entry for the pedestrian, which is celebrated with a pavilion and a small fountain, gift to the street.
And we really advocate, you know, a deliberately designed public realm. So this is, you know, maybe a manifestation of what we've just been talking about. This is in another DPZ community, but this idea really was embedded in this particular community. You can see in this picture, the buildings all engage, all these houses engaging the public realm. You see a bench, you see a dog fountain there on the left-hand side. You see, as Eric had mentioned, potted plants as essentially gestures of the homeowner to the passersby, you know, giving them a little bit of a vignette of landscaping and so forth and so on. And this is really what we envision the quality of streets and paths and pedestrian ways in Foressa to be like.
For this one, Foressa, we really invite everyone to go to Foressa because the site itself is the attraction. And doing the outdoor activities is just complementing or highlighting what is already there, not just there, but what you see from Foressa. It's very unique because Aboitis allowed us to maximize the land. So not only having the hike trails, but camping grounds as well. So even with all the people will have the opportunity, if they want to stay indoor or outdoor, by having these pockets of campsites that they can use, and there's different activities all over the Foressa. So as we said earlier, Foressa not only having these districts, but it is a story. It's a story that as you go deeper into a higher elevation, it is not monochromatic. It's not you will have different experiences and different activities. So you always have choices when you're there.
Yeah, when we were doing the planning, we've worked with several experts on this. I remember working with the University of San Carlos when we were doing a scan of the flora and fauna biodiversity. And we were working with the local folks there, identifying which ones are endemic, which ones are edible, which ones are medicinal. So all of this experience, other than the clearly adventure one, you can experience by going around the site. And it leaves a very distinct impression on whoever experiences Foressa. If you come across or if you get a chance going around the trails we've designed, there's this particular section of the trail which is really, really beautiful. We call it the Butterfly Trail. If you go through that, you see hundreds of species of butterflies while walking on the trail. So the experience of exploring and how you enjoy doing it while inside the development is something that Foressa Mountains is offering different from the other developments. So I think that sums up the convivial part of the recreational aspect of the development.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. You know, like I said earlier, when you started with this C, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, to our audience, viewers, this is the 5th C, okay? Convivial. I was saying it's a new word to me. And I love how, again, you highlight public spaces that just give so many options. Not just one way to live, but many options. So again, congratulations to this. Anybody listening would be like, wow, there's so much to do. And it's accessible to everybody. So yay, right? Okay, wait, 2 more C's, everybody. So 5 C's down, 2 more C's. Please stay with us because I certainly hope you're picking up the points from all, not just the gentlemen, but the ladies, all with their contributions to what makes this project a really unique one. So next, this is also very important. A lot of people actually don't probably think about this, but we need to start being conscious about it. So the next C is conserving. Sinan, shall you take this away, please?
Absolutely. Communities that are resource efficient, that are healthy, durable, and flexible. So this is the 6th C. It's like actually hiking up Foressa, and we're now on the downhill stretch, so bear with us. We're almost there. The need for planning and development that is conserving is even more pronounced in an island context, such as Cebu. Short of reclamation, the amount of developable land is finite, and the amount and pace of growth should be aligned with the needs of future generations. So, just throwing back into history, the Escondriles Plan of Cebu from 1873 that you see here, which also shows the surrounding barrios of Parian and San Nicolas. 150 years ago, they acknowledged the importance of mapping vital natural elements such as creeks, ponds, wetlands, and other topographic features. Many municipalities do define their urban growth boundaries, but because their development patterns are sprawl-based, they continually breach those boundaries and ignore the features of the land.
And the features of the land is where we start. You'll see on the left is a sort of diagram. The big blue is the river path and creekways and so forth, which is a piece of it, but also the topography is very important here. And so we approach the design of Foressa understanding and celebrating the existing form of the land. Frederick Law Olmsted's neighborhoods of the 20s and 30s, Riverside is the one in the top right, provided a model where streets and homes settle into topography, creating these sweeping and intricate forms of neighborhoods and blocks. And so we carefully applied this pattern of neighborhoods, streets, open spaces, and civic moments to the topography that was in Foressa already, resulting in forms that are sort of similar in the end. As the top right, in the bottom right, you see a portion of Foressa and how those forms are fairly similar. The red building in that drawing is Civic Building. For instance, it anchors the neighborhood on a sizable park. This is one of the sort of larger open spaces, the community open spaces. But that building sits atop a promontory. It sits on a post, on a podium, and the land falls down beyond it. And you have just amazing views down to the town center and into the valley. So rather than grading the site for ease of building, the building's been adapted to express and celebrate the existing beauty that is the site. It's really special.
I'd also like to chime in with a point that Matt brought up. We actually took great care in saving the highest points for the community, for public open space, or for a community facility. In most conventional developments, the very rich get the prime sites, i.e. the tops of the hills and mountains. In Foressa, the best sites are given to the community overall.
That's right, Sam. As a civil engineer, it was an engaging challenge to work hand in hand with the urban designers to craft a sensitive response to this awesome mountain terrain. And so as the design was being done, we were looking at the grades and what are the maximum street grades and what are the types of excavations that we would need to make in order to fit the homes and the streets into the mountainside in a sensitive manner.
I think the first time around, Paul, you told us to go back and design it again. It was quite challenging.
I was thrilled to see the drone image of how the plan is being implemented, and I can envision. I sort of take the illustrations that were done that had the homes included, and I can envision where the homes would go along these roads, and how great it would look.
It's that's one of the. It's such a great topic. This conservation. It makes us all look at different strategies as opposed to kind of the one solution fits all. It just doesn't work when you've got such a beautiful piece of property and you have the opportunity to kind of rest lightly on the land. So this illustration is of a hotel, of an inn, and as opposed to one large building that kind of ravages the property and requires lots and lots of scraping and filling and flattening. This is just one of those one of the examples and techniques that we've looked at and are utilizing, in that you break up the pieces. You kind of distribute the inn out down the hill. You allow a small building, kind of a public building on the top, and the hotel rooms are little carriage houses or cottages that cascade down the mountain. And it's kind of fun, because all of a sudden you take a hotel that can be very boring and you make it really interesting and really embedded into this beautiful landscape. And that's how I think the entirety of the architecture and the buildings and the neighborhoods are planned to be within Foressa. So it's kind of exciting. I'm really looking forward to see how, to see it actualized.
Yes, can I say something about this access? When we were doing the ocular inspection, or when we were trailblazing and finding networks of trails within the area, we were working with a local engineering firm, GHD, and we've identified several areas which are prone to erosion, and a lot of these stuff are located inside the whole park, or the whole development. And we were worked together with the GHD. We sat down with the academe, with the University of San Carlos environmental experts, and they have recommended what type of trees are endemic and what type of trees can be planted to avoid the erosion on the hillside, which will not only protect the trails, but also which will prevent sedimentation in the natural waterway. So the experience itself is fulfilling as a planner, because a lot of the experts are really working on giving a perfect environment and conserving what's there for whoever is investing in Foressa Mountain.
Back to you, Isa.
Again, hi. So with that goes to show that conserving is something we should all be mindful of. Because everyone just wants, again, I want a house, I want to live this way, I paid for it. But let's not forget, there's only one planet, there's only one home. And I love how you pointed out that in an island setting, much more, you need to be mindful of resources. So thank you very, very much, gentlemen and ladies, even thinking of which plants to put there. What's the word? Endemic?
Endemic.
It should be, right? It should be part, don't impose something just because it looks good, but it's not really something natural to the place.
Yes.
So again, embracing what this part of Cebu has to offer and respecting it, right? So thank you very, very much. Final stretch. I already brought this up when I said, hey, I paid for it. Here we go. Let's talk money. Cost effective, ladies and gentlemen. Sinan, take it away.
Absolutely. Communities that create and maintain their value. So, for the host community, host municipality of these kinds of communities, the costs for traditional neighborhood development can be anywhere from 50 to 60% less than in sprawl. This means that the local municipality has more discretionary spending money for community services, such as, we talked about healthcare, money spent for schools, to build and maintain parks, maybe even for transit in the future, and other services. This becomes really crucial. For example, under these pandemic conditions, one frontline sector that is often not discussed are the city sanitation and maintenance workers. With people at home all the time, more garbage is produced, either from cleaning the house, from home deliveries, etc. And this overtaxes the city sanitation workers. And if garbage collection is impossible due to there being too much trash, and the workers' capacities are exceeded, or the risk to their health is too great, then the health of the entire community is put at risk, with rotting garbage remaining uncollected. So, the cost savings from more compact development, such as what Foressa offers, also facilitates the funding and operation of integrated, real-time, geolocated, and publicly available municipal-wide digital information across community sectors, such as health, sanitation, you mentioned transportation, and even supply chains. My gosh, like I'm sure you've heard about here in the United States how toilet paper was, had become such a prized commodity. So, compare that with an IT, essentially an IT system that a T&D might be able to afford given lower municipal costs. Those kinds of supply chains can be much more easily managed.
That's right. And cost effective has a lot to do for me with green infrastructure. And one of the reasons green infrastructure is so cost effective is that you gain multi-benefits from your investment in it, so that you're getting more for less. And yes, it can be more cost effective for the developer. And what that means is, rather than spending money on the boring pipes and what's under the ground and people don't see, which is, what I do, it can be spent on the amenities throughout the community. And so this is just an example of how much more cost effective green infrastructure is than the conventional pipes and inlets. And it's because it treats the rainfall near where it lands and does it more naturally than just paved pipe and dump of conventional.
So rather than having the water flow into these huge pipes under the street, you don't need so many of them, because you're using the natural topography and drainage ways that are much lighter on the land to handle that stormwater and to percolate and to collect in a natural way. So you're building less pipe and spending less money.
Correct. And you're even naturally irrigating the street trees, for example, and replenishing groundwater.
So that's from infrastructure. We also obviously integrate cost-effective strategies at the building scale, and Eric can talk about those a little bit.
Sure, thank you, Sinan. One of the most efficient machines that you can have, the most efficient machine you can have, is the one that's turned off. So when we design buildings that will allow the occupants to open it up, particularly when we're cooling most of the time, when we can open up our houses, design them such that they'll cross-ventilate, and that the materials that we use allow a house to live very comfortably with its environment, that's the first cost savings that we can really think about with the design of our buildings. And in order to achieve that, we have to build buildings or design them such that they live well within their climate. So the cost-effective manner in doing that is keeping them smaller, keeping them simpler, not necessarily smaller, but maybe with less spaces. That's one of the things I'll talk about quite often is for every space that we take out, that means that all of the other remaining spaces are better, but the building becomes still smaller and more cost-effective to build. Here in America, it's a funny thing, but in so many houses, there are at least 3 places to eat: a kitchen, bar, a breakfast nook, and a dining table. Well, what if we just make one beautiful space to eat in the best part of the house and use that every day? All of a sudden, we've created lots of cost savings just by virtue of square footage. And that allows us to then look at simple materials, local materials, and designing buildings that are more open, more light, require less energy, and can generally work much better within the climate range. This is another slide of how that very simple room, high ceilings and high windows, so the house can self-ventilate. The natural air and natural light can come through virtually all year long, except on those cold days where you can kind of close it up. But part of the great opportunities in building with the local rock and kind of a thermal mass wall allows the walls of the house, when it gets cold up on the mountaintop, which it will, a little chilly, we kind of have this heat that's kind of collected by the walls that can radiate in when we close the house up. So those are just little tools of not only how we design efficiently, but also the materials that we select can make a significant difference in how these buildings both conserve and are much more cost effective than a kind of a typical suburban wood framed sheetrocked house. The other beautiful thing about designing these narrow houses, the two examples that we looked at previously are houses that are generally either one room deep or one room wide, which creates lots of natural light. But the most important thing about those is that they entice us to be outside. So the outdoor spaces, which is another part of keeping houses a little bit more efficient with maybe fewer spaces, is if we entice ourselves outside and into the environment, by virtue of creating these great courtyards and outdoor rooms, it helps us really enjoy the environment of Foressa and expand our living space almost to double. I mean, this is a perfect example of a project in the States that is hard to imagine not wanting to go into.
And I'd also like to add, especially when you're in pandemic lockdown, and maybe you can't necessarily be outside of your house, the main volume of your house per se, having, say, a courtyard or a patio like this, which is sort of like a semi-external space, semi-outdoor space, can be a very vital space in the house, especially if your children are on their Zoom classes, if your spouse is on his or her own, business Zoom meeting. So it could be another space for your own use or for your refuge if things within the main volume of the house gets a little bit crazy.
Very good.
It's really about using every square foot, yes. Right?
And I talked a little bit earlier about just the materials we use and this notion of high albedo, which is basically how the building responds to its climate and to its region. So here in Foressa, the notion of reflecting as much of the sun as we can is a very good thing. It helps cool the building, so this notion of the white, I talked a little bit about thermal mass, this notion of collecting a little bit of heat, which happens. But the more we reflect, when these buildings reflect, the more efficient they are. And you can see, look at the high-pitched roofs, which help not only they're lighter, which will also reflect the sunlight, but also shed water away from the buildings because there's quite a bit of rain. So the notion of managing all the aspects of the regional zone, temperature zone, and climate.
And from a psychological standpoint too, our DPZ's founding partner Andres Duani posits that in a post-pandemic world, this aesthetic, mostly white or very light colored materials, from this sort of like mindset, will gain popularity as more communities aim to convey the notion of cleanliness and hygiene and safety.
And last on cost effectiveness is that often the discussion is lost of what is the cost in people's lived experience. A value cannot be placed on the happiness a family feels when they can walk to a nearby playground with their children, or that individuals feel by having the option to walk or bike to a nearby destination rather than drive far afield for every activity. I think we've been discussing this with all the options for daily life. That's why we put it in there. Increasingly, places have tried to quantify this value of happiness. But I think here Bogota's ex-mayor, Enrique Penalosa, put it pretty well. There are a few things we can agree on about happiness. You need to fulfill your potential as a human being. You need to walk. You need to be with other people. Most of all, you need to not feel inferior. But when you can talk about these things, designing a city can be a very powerful means to generate happiness.
Thank you, Matt. Back to you, Isa.
Bravo, gentlemen. Sinan, Matt, Paul, and Eric, a masterful presentation. Thanks as well to Joy and Therese for popping in and adding some wonderful points from their perspective and their contribution. You know what? I think our panelists and even our audience members need to absorb everything that we just shared with them. It was a very loaded discussion, but there was no details spared, and that's why valuable points all abound. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. Everybody stretch while you watch this video. We're back. We're going to dive right into our Q&A segment because some of you actually sent in some questions, and we thank you for that. We got the whole panel here: Sinan, Matt, Paul, Eric, and our two lovely ladies, Joy and Therese. Here's a very good first question. In fact, real estate, the real industry watchers, are really observing this surge in sales for suburban locations. So even with resort properties nowadays, people are fleeing the big cities in favor of open spaces and outdoors. Do you think this is a knee-jerk reaction, or is this trend long-term? Who wants to take this?
I'll start.
Okay.
I think it's a great question, very insightful, actually. There is a knee-jerk aspect to it, just because, again, as I mentioned at the start of the presentation,
so there's truth to it, a little truth to it.
There's some truth to it. Cities have really lost their appeal because what makes a city attractive really has been shut down. The art and the culture aspects, for example, and of course the
density. High density,
cheap to jowl living environment. The flip side of that, though, is that there's the suburbs don't offer the right solution as well, because as we were mentioning earlier, the sprawl developments are still very much car oriented. So those that flee to the more open spaces, the more open subdivisions, they can only do so because they have a car, but not everyone can afford a car. And there are some sectors of society that still rely on job opportunities in the city. So there's always been there's always been movement in both directions. So I think what we're seeing now is an equilibrium, is a settling down of population distribution Some will still benefit from living in the city. Some
Yeah.
will still like living in the suburbs. You know, they
Yeah.
like driving their cars. That's perfectly fine. But now what we're giving a fair shake, a fair chance, is living in this sort of like medium density, walkable, mixed use town and village format.
Again, I think Matt's choice of word, he's been saying this over and over in the presentation, options.
Yes!
That's really it. It's an option. And if it's an offering, it really is up to the consumer, the buyer, to just go for it.
Yeah.
Versus, I have no choice.
Yes.
There's an interesting, interesting event that we've been noticing in our area, and that is, you know, when the folks in the mega cities are moving out, they're generally trying to stay in the general area and buying into the local suburbs of the metropolitan area, which means that those people that currently or originally own those suburban houses are leaving. Well, the interesting thing about our market is they are flocking to our new urbanist neighborhoods and communities, which is very, very interesting. And they were kind of coming out saying, boy, we're glad to be out of there.
Eric, you're saying that from the East Coast, and we have offices in the Colorado Rockies and the West Coast in smaller cities. And our doors are being pounded down. From the beginning of the lockdown, it's just been accelerating more and more.
Are there some at your door right now, Paul?
Because of his lovely Christmas tree. We are all noticing his lovely Christmas tree. I love how we're just getting to the holiday season as well. Sorry for that, Paul, but you know, since the start, we've been commenting on how lovely your background is, your space is right there. Okay, how about the lady? I have a question now for the lady. Since you're talking about cities, Ms. Joy, I think this is for you. You work closely with the local government in pushing green advocacies and urban renewal and development. So what's the biggest roadblock to cities adopting new urbanist principles? Because again, people are fleeing, but for you, it's a different scenario because you do work in the city. What's the biggest roadblock to cities adopting new urbanist principles? Ms. Joy?
I'd like to answer that without sounding political here. The first and foremost thing that we should be is to ensure that the candidates that supports sustainability and sustainable growth has to be voted into office. It's really boils down to policies here. I could only speak well with what I'm experiencing now with the most dense, one of the most dense cities in the world. We have 70,000 people per square kilometer. Our leader is very progressive, and we've been introducing. It's difficult because we're a city with a heavily built up community, and there's really not much growth or development. But what we've been doing in the city now is creating public spaces. For the city to become sustainable, we need to free up about 1,600 hectares of open space.
That's not an easy job.
It's not an easy job, but doable. We've reclaimed about 300 hectares already for the last year, and we're doing strategies unthinkable. We're doing vertical landscapes to increase the amount of green that the DNR is required us to do. That's it. Vote for someone.
So you're looking for someone. You're looking for ways to at least still make it happen. And again, with the way things are really being, with the way things are with the world, it's not just being here in the Philippines. I think it's something every future leader will now need to deal with and consider.
Correct.
So Ms. Joy, I hope the path ahead of you will be an easier one because there's no escaping what we need.
Yeah.
And it's not more buildings.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
Yes.
And let me just add one more thing about the Sustainable Development Goals that was crafted by the UN. And
Mhm.
all of these are being adopted and made into policy by our local Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board. Uh, that for every city, town, or province, they have to adopt the Sustainable Development Goals when they do their master plan or comprehensive development plan. So I think there's hope. And,
Let's. It's
there's
in our hands. Hope is in our hands. We need to make it happen. Okay. Thank you for that, Ms. Joy.
So,
Okay.
in some places, it's helpful to provide a model too. So, I mean, I think
Right,
you're talking about that too.
correct. Yeah.
Provide the model, and that can help drive change.
I was just gonna say that, Matt. Allow me, Isa, just to round out that point that it is encouraging that in the Philippines, in more power to Joy and the municipal leaders that she works with and other municipal leaders. But also in the Philippines, what's been encouraging is the private sector really has been leading the charge in green development. And so, to Matt's point, the more of these kinds of communities are built, the better, and then the more diverse, the more exposed, essentially, the not just the citizenry, but those that make the decisions are aware of this kind of development, of really the only way we should be developing from this point forward. As you said, there's no planet B. You know, we have to make the choice now.
Yes. Nicely said. Nicely said, both to Ms. Joy and our gentleman. Finally, because we're not just talking about the environment, we're talking about economy. Is there a reason then to be hopeful that more developers in the Philippines are increasingly adopting sustainable planning? Not just for the, like you said, those in the high up. It's really now for a wider segment of the market, not just for upscale properties. Who wants to take this one?
I can start too.
Yeah, go ahead, Sanan.
Well, again, the more you build, the more supply is provided, the more affordable this kind of development becomes. So we really do encourage many more proponents of development, of course, the private sector, but hopefully the public sector too, to adopt these 7 C's. What is really encouraging is to Eric's and Paul's points earlier, the market is shifting. They are becoming more savvy. They are becoming more aware that this is the model that is most tenable in the near to far future. And for the Philippines as well, I think the exposure to ideas from other places has really increased exponentially, especially with the internet and with travel. Or back when travel was a thing, right? People came back experiencing these kinds of walkable mixed-use communities and are driving the local market. And we're seeing the seeds of that. It's taking on slowly but surely, in part through efforts such as these being promoted by AboitizLand. My gosh, like we remain so grateful for the opportunity to work on this project and on seafront residences with AboitizLand. They are one of the most forward-thinking local developers that we've ever worked with, and of course, as a new urbanist, that means a lot to me. But it means even more being Filipino.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Sanan. And again, if you do want to see examples, that's exactly what Foressa Mountain Town's all about. And for taking us through the 7 C's that now hopefully everybody will be aware of and will start looking for. Because again, the power is now in your hands. Consumers, to our viewers, now that you know that there are these options, these offerings out there, particularly this one, again by AboitizLand, it's time to start thinking and act wisely. That wraps up our Q&A. Thank you again, gentlemen and ladies. That's Sanan, Matt, Paul, Eric, Joy, and Therese. Thank you for a very, very insightful session, which I'm sure is a big interest, not only for urban planners, but especially for property seekers looking for communities that support a better quality of life. Gentlemen, ladies, give yourselves a round of applause. Woohoo!
Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Isa.
Loaded discussion. Thank you again. It's a pleasure meeting all of you.
Goodbye.
There you go. Communities that our panel have demonstrated to us. Again, don't forget the 7 C's. Keep them in mind. Compact, complete, connected, complex, convivial, conserving, and cost-effective. Thank you again to our wonderful panel. That was Sinen, Matt, Paul, Eric, Joy, and Therese for imparting such valuable knowledge to us. So if you want to rewatch this episode, and I'm sure you do, because there was just so much to take in, the recorded webcast will be posted here in the Facebook feed in a very few minutes. And as we adjust to the changes brought about by the pandemic, AboitizLand will continue to be of service to you, our stakeholders, through well-planned residential developments that aim to create better ways to live. For inquiries on any of the projects, you may send AboitizLand a message here on Facebook. Thank you all again for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. You have been an amazing audience. We hope you learned a lot. I'm Isa Liton, wishing you all a good afternoon.
Success. Everyone dreams of it. Everyone strives for it. But not everyone achieves it. Success can mean different things to different people. As we pause to celebrate 25 years of AboitizLand, we ask ourselves, how do we measure success? AboitizLand was founded in 1994, with humble beginnings in a small office and a vision of creating quality, innovative properties for the Cebu market. And our very first residential development, Northtown Homes, a master-planned community now touted as Cebu's most prestigious address. Our very first industrial development, West Cebu Industrial Park in Balamban, a sprawling 268-hectare industrial estate ideal for medium to heavy industries such as shipbuilding and allied activities that helped create thousands of jobs for the residents of Balamban and transformed it from a fourth-class to a first-class municipality. Our first commercial development, the outlets at Pueblo Verde, the first outdoor outlet mall in Cebu, offering exciting new shopping and dining experiences. Emboldened by the success of these pioneering developments, AboitizLand ventured forth into bigger and more ambitious projects, spreading its footprint in Cebu and beyond. AboitizLand in 2019 has grown by leaps and bounds since our first inception. Our workforce has grown exponentially, and so has our business. Thousands of hectares of land have been transformed into innovative, deliberately planned, and purposely designed residential, commercial, and industrial communities that elevate the living experience. And with our growth come the rewards, not only in revenue, but also in things far more valuable, like the number of people whose lives we have touched and changed for the better, our vecinos. AboitizLand takes this further with various programs designed to give Filipinos a chance to create better ways to live for themselves, ensuring that our developments positively impact our neighbors and our surrounding ecosystem, advancing the communities that host us as we advance our business. No matter how we quantify 25 years of achievements, it is what we have yet to do that holds the most promise for AboitizLand. More strategic partnerships to be forged, more fully integrated townships to be built, more industrial parks that fortify businesses and create opportunities, more commercial centers that elevate lifestyles, and more residential communities where individuals and families will live, love, and grow. AboitizLand. After 25 years, one thing is clear. we've only just begun. As we cherish our glorious past and celebrate today's victories, we forge ahead into an exciting future.